The decree was clear: wrap the Queen of Navarre so that no one would see her undressed. Even in her final moments, Isabella was concerned about keeping a long-standing promise. Under no circumstances had she ever fully removed her clothing. Even her husband, King Theobald, had never seen her without her undergarments. The devout daughter of Louis the Saint was not one to make empty promises. Rumors circulated about the royal couple, suggesting they were living in a white marriage. In the Middle Ages, such a union implied that husband and wife abstained from physical pleasures. Typically, a refusal to fulfill marital duties could lead to divorce, as the Church considered this a valid reason. However, if both parties agreed to such an arrangement, the clergy had no objections. Theobald and Isabella were married in the middle of the 13th century in Melun, a town in Ile-de-France, near the forests of Fontainebleau. He held the titles of Count of Champagne and Brie, and from the age of 14, he also wore the crown of Navarre, while she was the second child of the King of France and Margaret of Provence. The marriage was intended to reconcile several families. Theobald was to mend relations with his sister, the Duchess of Brittany, who also claimed the crown of Navarre, while the King of France gained a loyal neighbor. Interestingly, immediately after the wedding, the Navarrese monarch paid his sister £3,000 in exchange for her renunciation of her claim to the throne. The feelings of the young couple did not concern anyone. Isabella dutifully obeyed her father's wishes, while Theobald needed a strong ally. At the time of their wedding, the bride was 13, and her fiancé was 5 years older. While the princess could not change her father's decision, she established her own rules in her marriage. Isabella of France refused to appear before Theobald without clothing. No one was allowed to see her nakedness. The young king did not object to his wife's vow. In those days, such piety was met with respect. Though, of course, most couples lived quite differently. Whether their marriage was truly white remains a question. After all, they were royals. They were expected to produce an heir. Interestingly, at the same time in Poland, King Boleslaw V, known as the Shy, was living. At the age of 13, he married the Hungarian princess Kunigundarpid, who, like the French Isabella, also refrained from marital relations. Even in modern times, Kunigund has been canonized as a saint. However, Spanish chroniclers maintain that Isabella and Theobald had one child. This means their marriage cannot truly be called white. It's likely that the Navarrese monarchs lost their only heir. After that, their lives returned to a familiar routine. The queen devoted most of her time to prayers and charitable works, while the king focused on the interests of France. Indeed, the Navarrese couple preferred to live in Paris rather than the south, where Theobald's younger brother took care of their direct responsibilities. When King Louis IX set out on a crusade, Theobald and Isabella accompanied him. This Eighth Crusade turned out to be the most disastrous in history. Just a month after their grand departure, the King of France passed away, followed shortly by Isabella's husband. By that time, the European knights had reached the shores of Sicily. The widowed Queen of Navarre began her journey back home. Spanish historians believe that by then she was siendo prenata, meaning she was expecting a child. If all had gone well, Theobald's lineage would have continued. But it turned out otherwise. Queen Isabella died in childbirth, and her last request was to be wrapped as well as possible so that no one could see her undressed. She intended to uphold her promise even in death. No one was allowed to look. Isabella and Theobald found their final resting place in Provence. The throne of Navarre was taken by Theobald's younger brother, Henry I the Fat. He became the father-in-law of the French King Philip the Fair and was even mentioned in passing in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. But that's a whole different story. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, give a like, and thank you for your comments.